Good evening, everyone, or late afternoon, whatever you want to call it. My name is Richard Montoya, and I'm the DC with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and I'm here in Grants, and I service the offices on the north and west part of the state. One of my employees, my soil contact that's headquartered here at the Grants office, is also on, Autumn Wakanda. And if you have any questions, between me and her, maybe we can answer some of the stuff and keep things going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go ahead and show you a PowerPoint presentation. And then probably towards the end, I'll turn on my camera so you can see who I am and stuff. So with that, I'll go ahead and see if I can get this PowerPoint going, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay, so can everybody see that? It says Natural Resource Conservation Service Team 1 presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so like I said before, I'm with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and we're headquartered here in Grants. And the first screen that I'm going to show you is where we are located. The NRCS, or Natural Resources Conservation Service, is broken down into a north area and a south area. And within the bounds of New Mexico, there are 11 teams. So on the screen that you see right now, you'll see Team 1. And that's right here, if you can see my pointer. We're called Team 1, and we have an office in Aztec. We have an office in Crown Point. We have an office in Gallup, and we have the office here in Grants. And basically, we were kind of set up this way because we service several of the pueblos and then the Navajo Nation. The only thing that you see out there is a portion of the county. San Juan County is actually, and it drops into McKinley, I think, but you'll see that it's serviced out of Arizona. And I think the reason for that is because that area there is part of the Big Navajo, and they're part of the Western Agency. So those are serviced out of offices from the Arizona side. So we don't get involved in a lot of the stuff there. We get a lot of people that come out of the Shiprock area and basically want assistance and information, but we can't help them out because they're serviced out of Arizona. All the folders and files and information for all that area is at one of the Arizona offices. So, but from there on, we have all the Eastern Agency. We have a lot of the tribal ranches on the Navajo Nation. We drop down into Acoma, and we also have some of the ranches that Laguna has bought within the district, which are headquartered on the kind of the northern part of the county. But they're still serviced out of Los Lunas because Los Lunas actually has board members on their own water district and whatnot from Laguna. But that kind of gives you an idea of where the state is broken down into the north area and the south area. So our team is basically part of the north area, and whenever we had meetings and anything that goes on, we're all part of the north area. We have a separate area conservationist for the north and one for the south. And then we have teams for, say, archaeology and engineering and range that actually service our area. And then they have their own down in the southern part of the state. So that gives you an idea of where we are and how we work the state as a whole and how we work the north area and Team 1. So if you have any questions as we're going along that you need to know right away, just jump in. And I think the group is small enough where we can probably not kill too much time by doing that. So okay, so Team 1. So like I said, we're located in the northwest portion of New Mexico, and we have all kinds of different land statuses. And one of the big uniqueness of our team is the Navajo Nation, which has so many different land statuses. So the employees within our area have to learn, all the different land statuses and how each one is treated. And unlike like Acoma and Zuni, they're a little bit different. So we work like the one land office, whereas on the Navajo Nation, we work the Eastern Agency, and we work with the Window Rock from the different departments out there. And then we also service the Rama chapter. So they work a little bit differently also than does the, the Navajo Nation in general, the Big Navajo. All our 4 offices service tribal lands. The land statuses include mainly rangeland, and that's probably down toward the bottom portion of our team. We do have a lot of cropland, but the majority of that is up in the Aztec area, in the Farmington area, back in there, Kirtland. But all our offices have a little bit. Grants, we have some on Acoma lands. We have some private lands in Blue Water and Solieta, and we have some down towards Rama. So we do have a little bit of cropland, a lot of it's dry cropland, and then a lot of the practices that we do down here are a little different than what is up there in the Farmington Aztec area. And most of our country down here is irrigated pasture and hayland for the most part. We don't have enough water to sustain real good alfalfa fields or truck crops of any kind, that kind of thing. But on the other hand, our country down here has quite a bit of forest land. And forest land stretches down south of Grants all the way to the Arizona state line, with the great majority of our forest land being in out of the Gallup office. So we have a lot of contracts and practices that we install on forest lands also. And of course, all tribal governments and their natural resource agencies are different. They're similar, but they're all different. We have different typos. They work kind of the same, but they all have their little different fields that they do differently. So our staff has to get used to, working with all the different offices. And when we were set up here about 5 or 6 years ago, we had individual offices and we were set up as teams. When we went to teams, the whole idea behind being a team was that I could bring in anybody from my Aztec office, and they could feel comfortable and help some of the producers out here in our country. And likewise, I could send some of my employees that are here at the Grants office or Gallup office up to Aztec. And we could cross those county lines. We could cross those boundaries between the different tribes and pueblos. And they would be able to work and understand what goes on, within the different tribes and the different agencies. So that was one of the beauties of the team concept that we started at, and it works. The only bad part about what we do right now is we're kind of understaffed still. So with all the work we have, sometimes it's hard to send somebody from here to go to Aztec or vice versa. But it works, and it's gotten to where, like all other agencies, we're shorthanded, but a lot of the stuff we do takes a little longer than what it used to a few years back. So a lot of what we do is involved in partnerships. So for USDA, we have our 4 offices that I mentioned before: Gallup, Grants, Crumpland, and Aztec. Those are the 4 offices that are within our team here. And within the team, we work with through soil and water conservation districts. And the 3 districts that we service is McKinley Soil and Water, and that encompasses, it's out of Gallup, but it encompasses a little bit of Cibola County. It also includes McKinley, and they may have just a tad of the San Juan County area, which is north of Gallup there. Also, we have the Lava Soil and Water Conservation District. That district is here in Grants, and basically that district is mostly Cibola County, but we do get into McKinley County a little bit, and we even go into Sandoval County, which is out towards Albuquerque. And then we also go a little bit into, what is it down there by Quemado, by Fence Lake, that area there. So we drop down into Catron County just a hair also. And of course, San Juan is mainly San Juan County, and that's the San Juan Soil and Water District. But they do go into Rio Arriba County a little bit. And I don't believe they have any McKinley County, but it's San Juan mainly and a little bit of Rio Arriba. And we also work, with the USDA family, with the Farm Service Agency. We basically do the land eligibility. Farm Service Agency does the producer eligibility. So we work in conjunction with each other when we do our programs. And then finally, we also have rural development. They're also part of the USDA family, but they're kind of specific on what they do, and it's mostly infrastructure for homes or villages. They deal with the homeowners, the water, the sewage, those kind of issues, those kind of projects, that kind of thing. So, other agencies that we deal with include New Mexico State University, the Extension Service. We have other partners that include like the State Land Office, State Historic Preservation Office, the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We deal with county governments. We deal with Forest Service. We deal with the BLM. And BLM is kind of big up in the country, the Aztec country, whereas down here, we have a lot of input and do a lot of stuff with the Forest Service, especially out of the Gallup office and Grants offices both. So we deal with some of the nonprofits that are out there. We have a lot of ag organizations and groups, including some of the acequia groups, or those are ditch groups that are out here. A lot of the cattle associations. We have local citizens and landowners that are interested in conservation. So we have quite a few producers that we deal with there. And of course, the tribes and tribal agencies and tribal groups. Like I said before, we have Acoma, Zuni, and the Navajo Nation are the main tribes that we deal with out of our team. As far as the staff that we currently have right now, of course, myself and I serve as Gallup, Grants, Aztec, and Crown Point because I'm the district conservationist. I have Tatiana Mercado. She's a rangeland management specialist out of the Gallup field office. Fauna Lee, she's out of that area originally, but she's our soil conservationist, headquartered out of Gallup also. Desiree Chavez, she's here in the Grants area. She's formerly from here, or she's always been from here. We just hired a brand new Farm Bill specialist for the Grants office, and that's Rachel Luevano. She just started actually last week. This is her second week working on the job, and she's going to be in charge of a lot of the stuff that we upload for contracts into our what we call DMS, which is a giant filing cabinet in the sky there, where we put everything, on contracts and whatever else we do. We have Autumn Wakanda. She's from the Laguna area, but she's been working here for quite a few years as the Farm Bill specialist, and now she's our soil con technician, helping us do a lot of the engineering, headquartered here in Grants. We have Claudia Wileto. She's out at the Crown Point office. She's from Standing Rock, been there for a long time. Chambliss Lantana, out from the Farmington area, and he's our soil conservationist out of the Aztec office. Evangeline Begay, soil conservationist, also in Aztec. Shane Neswood, he's our soil contech out of the Aztec office. And also Isabel Francisco, who's our Farm Bill specialist for the team out of the Aztec office. So that right there is currently our staffing that we have for all the offices. And I'm sure, most of you folks that are on know at least one or two, maybe most of the people that are on there. So those are the individuals. So if you have questions or anything, you can always feel free to contact any of them. And, we share information back and forth anyway. So. And just to show you a little bit, that would be me right there. Always working hard. Here's Autumn. She's the one that's also on the call, working as our soil contact out of the Grants office. Tatiana Mercado, she's out at the Gallup office. And then we have Claudia Vileto out of the Crown Point office. Chambliss. Then we have Shane Neswood. He's our soil contact out of Aztec. And Isabel Francisco, our Farm Bill specialist. I don't have a couple of pictures of the other ones because they're newer people, and I never have taken their pictures so I can put them on the PowerPoint. So anyways, what is the basis for our Farm Bill programs? I don't know how many of you have been involved with any of our programs or have been to any of the local work group meetings or anything like that. But initially, the way they started, it was part of the Farm Bill of 2002. And the way it came out, it was supposed to be a local working groups. So what we did is we formed local work groups at every office, which included members of all the community, the tribe, the agencies, whoever wanted to participate as part of the Farm Bill local work group. So we started having meetings in 2002, and the whole idea was to try and get local people to make local decisions for some of the local practices that were needed. So how do we do that? We had to identify and prioritize some of the local resource concerns and issues that are out there. What were they? Erosion. Did we have no vegetation? Did we have underserved individuals? What are the things that were common to all the area there? So we had individuals from the local community come in, and we had meetings. The first year, we had like 3 different ones. And then years after that, we always have a meeting, at least one, but we had 2. For the next couple of years, we had 2 or 3 meetings again. And then anymore, we just go to 1 because, most of the stuff has already been identified. And typically what we do is we talk about what we did last year and what we're going to do this year and how we're going to do it. So, but initially, we had local partners that came in from different agencies and let us know what some of the issues and concerns were. And the whole idea was to build a local program where we could address all the local issues that everybody had, instead of bringing information from Washington or other states or the region as to what general concerns were for the whole area. We localized them. So we talked about what are we going to do here and why. So, and the whole idea was to have no underserved individuals within the community and to address all the issues that are out there for all the local ranches. Because, for the most part, what issues Marge has on her ranch is going to be the same stuff that her neighbors have, 5 miles up the road and 10 miles west and 15 miles south and that kind of thing. So local was the key to the whole program, to the whole process there. Well, how does the Farm Bill program work? So the Farm Bill program starts out with Congress, and initially, they had all the programs that we had in our past programs identified. We had other programs where we were funding similar practices, except they were called a different program. So they had a kind of like a blueprint, you could say, of how the programs worked in the past, what the changes were for the new Farm Bill for starting in 2002. So a lot of those things were identified by local work groups, and then Congress appropriated funding. So then the funding comes down to the regions, and then it comes down to the states, and then it comes down to the local areas. And knowing, the resource concerns, the resource issues that everybody had, the state was able to identify how much money they had that was going to come in for rangeland, how much money was going to come in for cropland, for forest land, for dry cropland, for some of those entities like dairies and feedlots and those kind of things. So that money was divvied up into different funds within the state, and then the money went down to the local area. So back when it first started, each office had a budget for each one of the different land statuses and resource concerns that we had. So, and of course, within the state, we had committees and we had soil and water districts, and we gave the programs direction as to where we wanted the money to be spent and why, and what kind of practices we're going to take care of those issues that we found out on with the natural resources. So anyways, once all that was identified, the first ranking process, application process took place where, signups were usually year round is what we had, and now they've broken it down to a specific time. Those applications that come in, they go through a ranking process to see what kind of issues and concerns they have with their natural resources. And then, the ranking identifies them, gives them points for what they're going to treat. And basically, you go on a list, and the higher the number, those are the individuals that have actually the first crack at the money that comes in. And then obligation occurs, and contract implementation is next, and then operation and maintenance is last. So whatever gets installed under the contracts has to be, taken care of for the lifespan of those practices. So basically, our Farm Bill programs, the main bread and butter programs that we have within the Farm Bill programs, number one is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. And that is the program that we use to put in infrastructure on farms and ranches and on forest allotments and all that kind of stuff. So if the issues out there is grazing management, if the issue is no production or lack of production of feed and fiber out there, on the range, then the Environmental Quality Incentives Program takes over. If it's something having to do with water, something having to do with fields that are unlevel, or dirt ditches that they want to go in and save water, put them into ditch lines or put them into pipelines, anything like that, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program is what's going to take care of that. And it encompasses many initiatives, and I'll go through some of those here in a few minutes. Another part of the Farm Bill programs is the ACEP, and that means Agricultural Conservation Easement Program is what that acronym means. And basically what that does is those are easements. They could be on wetlands, they could be on sensitive areas, they could be on ranches where next to cities where everything's being subdivided. So sometimes those individual ranchers don't want that to be subdivided, so they put it into an easement where that property will remain as a ranch forever. So they sell those easements to the government. And in the past, the government would purchase them, and and they were initially they used to be 10-year easements, and now or forever easements, for in perpetuity easements. And now we go through a land company that actually holds the easement. But the beauty of those easements is that the farmer, the rancher, gets to use those easements, or the family, forever. But it has to follow certain rules, and they still get to use them, but they get conserved where you don't have overgrazing. The wetlands are conserved. The place basically doesn't get broken down into a subdivision, stuff like that that's going to keep them in agriculture. And the easement program that we have now basically took over some of the previous easements, which are Grazing Lands Protection Program, Farm and Ranch Protection, wetlands. They used to be individual programs. Now we have one big bundle, and it's called ACEP. So another Farm Bill program that is one of our main programs that we have under NRCS is CRP, which is the Conservation Reserve Program. And basically that one is it takes farmland and grasslands that are typically on the east side of the state or down in the southern part of the state where, it's lands that have a lot of erosion, soils that are exceeding T, the T value for the tolerance of the soil erosion, and it conserves them. So a lot of those fields, say on the east side of the state, that became cotton lands, that became wheat fields, that became cornfields, that don't get irrigation water, but they're mostly dry land that never should have been broken out to begin with. It puts them back into native grasslands, and then they get conserved. So that program there has a lot, mainly the east side of the state, but there's also a lot of fields in the southern part of the state. And what it does is it pays the producers that are in it their 10-year contracts, and it pays them so many dollars per acre per year to keep them out of production. But one of the things that has to be done is they have to go back into native grasses. and turned back into some kind of rangeland. And then the last program that we deal with is called the Conservation Stewardship Program. And this is kind of a spin-off of EQIP. Basically, what the Conservation Stewardship Program does is it includes mainly management practices. So under EQIP, what we do is we tell the producers, get all your infrastructure taken care of through EQIP, get all your fences, your wells, your pipelines, your irrigation wells, anything that you need to get done, do it under EQIP, all the infrastructure. And then after you get it all set up, then get into the Conservation Stewardship Program. And that program basically has management practices, including stuff like grazing management, which we call 528, which is prescribed grazing, which whoever gets into the program has to, basically take half and leave half of the grass that's out there to keep it maintained so it doesn't get overgrazed. You have to practice irrigation water management on irrigated fields, basically. So that way you conserve the water and it's put on the land the way it's supposed to be. You don't overwater, but you don't underwater either, and you keep a well balance of the irrigation. If you have wildlife on the unit, there's practices for wildlife. Getting your fences in shape so that the deer, the elk can jump over the top without getting hung up on the wires. Or it could be stuff like the bottom wire being high enough where the antelope can cross without getting stuck and dying and getting hurt, whatever the case might be. Or for those troughs where on the ranches where you get a lot of birds that are trying to drink water, a lot of times you see dead crows, dead birds, you see little critters that have gone in to try and get a drink in your trough, and they end up drowning. So there's another provision there where you can put in little ramps and protect the small critters that are trying to get a drink. And there's many, many others, another one, just to give you another example, is maybe like the people that are haying. It might be a small grain, or it could be alfalfa, it could be irrigated pasture mix. There's provisions in there where you do different things for your equipment, where you flush the wildlife, the birds out. That way, they don't get stuck in the baler or stuck in the cutter, when you're cutting your hay. So those are some of the different things, and there's many, many other ones that are available through this program. And the way that works is you get paid a certain amount per acre or per practice that is being installed to take care of your whatever the management practice might be.
Hey, Richard, I got a question for you.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. The EQIP program, what's the number of times you can sign up for it?
Okay, so you can sign up as many, you can sign up per unit once a year. But let me tell you what ends up happening. Okay, so I service the 4 offices, and typically we have between my 4 offices, we have 150 to about 180 applications per year. Okay, and those applications are broken down into the different disciplines that I mentioned before. Some are range, some are forest, some are cropland, and I think those are the main ones that we have. But and wildlife's another one. But we get X amount of dollars through the state for the team itself, and then there's programs that are covered, and I'll cover the initiatives here in a minute. There's different initiatives that are out there also that the money goes to. But when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, we get 150 to 180 applications. We rank them all, and then we start spending the money that's allotted to our team in our area. And typically we fund anywhere from this year, it's been, so far we have about 28, I think, that we have funded. But typically we fund about 30 or 40. So, there's a lot of them that never get funded just because we don't have enough money for it. So what we do is we defer those applications to the next year. And of course we have other applicants that join in and whatnot. But yeah, we fund probably about, maybe 20% of people that apply. And some of them are repeat applications that we have some that have been in the system now for 4 years, and they still didn't get funded this year. And the reason for that is basically because they just don't have enough resource concerns or issues that they're addressing out there on their unit, their land unit. But anyway, so oops, sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but anyways, we try and spend as much money as we can and service as many applicants as we can. But yeah, say roughly 20% get into the program every year. But to answer your question, yeah, you can apply as many times as you want, really. But you can, it's only one application per land unit that you have. So.
Right. Okay. And then we do have a question in the chat box. It reads, in order to qualify for the stewardship program, you would have to complete the EQIP program, right?
No,
First,
that's not necessary. No, that's the way we kind of push it, but you don't have to, because there's a lot of units out there that have never done EQIP, but yet they have all the infrastructure in their units from past, because we get a lot of producers that actually don't want to participate in some of our programs initially, but then they find out that, they have all their infrastructure in, and, they may need a few little things if they got into EQIP, but they don't necessarily, most of their ranches are well watered and they're well fenced and all that. So they can go directly to the conservation stewardship program and join in. And yeah, it's not a prerequisite. We recommend it. That way the management is easier to do, basically. But no, you don't have to go through EQIP and then into CSP. In fact, you can have both at one time if you wanted to also. You may be doing EQIP on the part of the ranch that is lacking water, and say the other half of your ranch is well watered, well fenced. You can get into conservation stewardship program and do both. So yeah, you can have one or you can have the other, you can have both at the same time. And I mentioned, okay, so we get money for the team for range, forest, irrigated cropland, dry cropland, the wildlife, those kind of things. And then we also have some what we call state initiatives and national initiatives. These are other fund pools. When you apply, so you're applying for one application, and then what we do is when we figure out what your resource concerns are, all your issues and your problems that you have in your ranch or farm, then we rank you in whatever's going to try and help you. So you may apply under the team, but we may stick you in 3 different fund codes to see where we can get you some money to apply those practices. So the state has several of them. Here are the ones that the state has. If you're going to get into the organic or transitioning into organic program, there's money for that. There's another program for wildlife. You just want to do specific practices for wildlife, and I'll show you some here in a minute. You can do EQIP for wildlife. If a lot of times we don't have enough manpower, so some individuals elect to have like a consultant do a conservation activity plan, a conservation plan for them rather than us. So there's funds for that. They're limited and they're specific to certain things, but you can get plans completed by somebody else besides NRCS. There's money that comes in specifically for tribal lands. There's money comes in specifically for beginning farmers and ranchers. And basically a beginning farmer and rancher is somebody that hasn't been farming for more than 10 consecutive years. So if you qualify under that, there's money available for that. And then there's socially disadvantaged. Basically, this is all the minority groups that are out there. There's a program where you can qualify under socially disadvantaged. And when you look at socially disadvantaged, beginning farmer, rancher, and tribal, the rates are higher for the conservation practices that are installed under these programs. And then we also have what we call the High Tunnel Initiative. So that's for those individuals that want to put in those high tunnels or hoop houses. They're not greenhouses per se, but they are for larger areas, typically Most of them run, anywhere, what are they, like 100 by 200 feet? You're looking at anywhere from, I think, 1,000 square feet underneath, maybe up to as high as 3,000 square feet. And I'll show you some pictures here in a while. So we also, cost share on those high tunnels. And then there's another one specifically for water management entities, which include ditch groups, irrigation groups, sequias, those kind of groups. So there's a special fund there because typically when you have this water management entities, when you're doing any kind of large pipeline, you're doing any kind of ditch line, you're doing structure for water control, anything, those structures take a lot of money. So this fund doesn't fund a whole lot of entities every year, but it funds some great big projects. And right now we have, I think, 3 or 4 that we're working on up there in the Aztec office. And they're actually big irrigation groups that are doing work on their delivery units to the farms. And then we have some national initiatives, and this one's here. What happens on this one is there's watersheds that need a lot of help within New Mexico, and those were identified a few years back. So those there's initiatives for that, and one of them is called Source Water. And the only one that we have in our team is out in the area between Pruitt and Theroux. Stretches past Theroux, I think. But there's funding in there to do thinnings, to do water type projects. There's another one called Strike Force, and that's for another one for minority landowners. There's another one, the National Organic Initiative, and then they're kind of specific to certain crops and those kind of things. There's a Regional Conservation Partnership Program. This one is one that we use to fund practices on federal lands. So if you have a BLM allotment or if you have a Forest Service allotment, then typically this is the program that we're using. We call it RCPP, or Regional Conservation Partnership Program. And those are funds that come specifically to work with BLM lands or forest lands. And we have to go through the whole coordinated resource management planning plans with Forest Service and BLM in order to get those funded. We have another one called Water Smart. This one is big up in the Aztec area, but it's conserving water coming out of some of the different rivers that are up there. And it's basically just irrigation type of practices. There's another one called the Lesser Prairie Chicken, Ogallala. This is all on the east side. We don't have any prairie chickens on this side of the state, but there's specific funding that comes in to implement practices to improve the prairie chicken habitat out in that country. Plus, the whole idea is also to take care of the Ogallala aquifer, which is the largest aquifer in the Midwest there. And, it's being depleted of a lot of water because of the irrigation that occurs and whatnot. So there's practices that actually are there to contribute to this aquifer regeneration. And then there's the National Water Quality Initiative. This is also one that's up there in the Farmington area. And again, this one deals with practices on irrigation for certain things that will conserve water for the rivers that are up in that country there. So, how do we accomplish? Yes.
Hey, Richard, I have a question.
Yes, talk to me.
Okay, so I see the Equip New Mexico Beginner Farmer and Rancher, and I see number contract on the side. The length of an Equip Beginner Farmer Rancher contract, how long does that vary? Is there a specific amount of contracts that are there for that one particular program?
Okay, so we get funding for that one. And what we do is we always have many, for around here, that's one of the big ones that we have. So we'll have probably 30 applications for beginning farmer rancher. So this one, the money's coming out of the state. So our 20 will be combined with another 80, 90 from the rest of the state. So we rank them. The money comes in through our Albuquerque office, our area office, and they do the same process. The highest ranked applications will take first priority, and they go down the list until the money runs out. And typically in our neck of the woods here, we'll get 2 or 3 beginning farmer rancher contracts every year. So, and it'll be 2 or 3 of probably 80, 90 in the whole state. Because there's a lot of new individuals that are always farming and ranching and starting and whatnot.
Right. Okay. And I have another question based on eligibility.
Okay.
What's the minimum acreage would we have to stay above in order to qualify for this beginner farmer rancher?
There is no minimum acreage.
Okay.
Yeah, no minimum acreage, and it's open to everybody. So, yeah, acreage has never been part of our programs because you start discriminating against the small guy and giving the money to the large producer. And so our programs don't do that. So there's no minimum. We have under the beginning farmer rancher program, we've had people that have put in a hoop house that's 100 by 50 or 50 by 100. So what is that? How many square feet is that? That's not very many. Not even an acre, not even a quarter acre, nothing like that. So yeah, but yeah, that's the answer to that question there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And how do we accomplish all this program stuff that we're doing? Program outreach. So like I said before, part of the local work group is that we're not going to have any underserved individuals or communities. It's one of the goals. So again, like, all our programs they're open to eligibility to everybody, regardless of what race, sex, national origin, disability they have or whatever. Oops, sorry about that. Let me go back. And of course, like I said, we make them available to everybody. And we have local work groups that, we discuss the screening and resource concerns and the ranking criteria, because we want to make it local to where, we're taking care of the issues that are out there to all the individuals that are in the local area. And we're not bringing, concerns that are coming out of the Midwest or the East or the South that wouldn't even apply here. So we try and focus on the local area so they don't become barriers to anyone. And how do we accomplish outreach? Of course, newspapers, radio, district newsletters, the statewide news medium, word of mouth is probably one of the biggest things that's out there. Presentations, and of course, all you folks partners. So we have meetings like this where we talk about what we have in our programs and whatnot. And then we'll let you disseminate the information and send people to our offices so that we can further discuss what they want to do, where, when, and what's needed. So then, of course, NRCS websites and different media of that type. So this will give you kind of an idea for 2021 of what we did. This is last year. Some of the range practices or a great majority of the range practices that we got under contract was brush management. Some of it was rabbit brush, some was juniper, some was pinon, some was cholla cactus. We had some contracts in cholla. We had some on salt cedar. Did I forget any other brush management, Autumn, that you can think of? We have erosion control structures for taking care of smaller oils, which are great stabilization structures. Ponds, for livestock water, water wells, pumping plants, watering facilities, troughs and storages, livestock pipelines, fences, prescribed grazing, range plantings, critical area plantings. Those are some of the big items that we had in our contracts under range. Under cropland practices, we had irrigation pipelines, water control structures. We had quite a few of the sprinkler systems. Most of this were up in that Aztec Farmington area. Irrigation land leveling, that was throughout the team. Surface irrigation systems, cover crops, herbaceous weed control, hedgerow plantings, land smoothing, the high tunnels, we had pond sealing and lining. We had some of those contracts. We had some irrigation reservoirs, obstruction removal, stream bank and shoreline protection, critical area plantings also on cropland, micro irrigation systems, pasture and hayland plantings, irrigation water management, nutrient management, pest management, conservation cover, and crop rotations. And then for the forest practices, most of this were out in towards the Gallup area between here and there. We had quite a few field breaks in case there was fires. You know, they're basically thinnings, but they get thinned a little harder than a regular thinning. And then we had also the thinnings, which is not on there, but the woody residue treatment is another one, which is the lopping and scattering or shredding of all the slash that's out there left after you do any kind of thinning or logging or whatever. And then, of course, wildlife practices, which is water harvesting catchments, you know, getting rainwater, capturing that and putting it out there for wildlife. And then, of course, brush management was also one of the practices for providing more habitat for different species of wildlife. Hedgerow plantings and, you know, for some of the neotropical birds and stuff, and tree and shrub establishment also. So kind of gives you an idea when you look at that pie chart, what we spent. So the funding that we got, about 54% went to cropland. And the reason for that is because the practices are a little bit more expensive for a cropland type. When you're talking about putting in some sprinklers, those are a lot more expensive than when you put in troughs and range or wells or whatever it might be. But 54% of 2021 funds were spent on crop. 38% went into range, and then forest was like 1%, and 7% was for wildlife practices. So that kind of gives you an idea of the breakdown of how our money has, and every year it's a little different, but it's close. So what you see there is probably fairly close to it. Percentages will change, but kind of as a general, say the majority of the funding will be going here. Range will be second. Wildlife right third, and then forest land is probably going to be the last one. For New Mexico, this is the top 13 practices that we usually have been contracting and paying out on over the last 5 years. So number one is brush management. We do lots of brush management throughout the state. And when you see numbers, don't pay attention to that. That's just a code that we have in our computer system, how we track it. Sprinkler irrigation systems is number 2. Micro irrigation systems is number 3. And of course, that deals with irrigation and water conservation. Livestock pipelines is big. You know, we do lots and lots of pipelines to put water from point A to point B and not have to drill too many wells, that kind of thing. Fencing. Lots of fences, especially out on the Navajo Nation. We do lots and lots of fencing. Watering facilities, that includes troughs and storages. Irrigation water conveyance pipelines. Wildlife habitat management, pumping plants. Pumping plants, basically, these are the ones that we put in wells for livestock pipelines and to service ranches. Structures for water control, water wells. Forest stand improvement, which is basically thinning of the forest, ponderosa pine, spruce fir kind of stuff, and irrigation ditch linings. So those are the main practices that we've kind of been spending our money on over the last few years. At the local level, how does it work? We have an open sign up. Basically, the sign up runs from August to December. And that's when we announce it. We take applications. But we also sign up people year round. So if you come in, we'll sign you up. We'll send you the FSA, Farm Service Agency, to get all the paperwork completed. And then we'll sign people up in August and December. That's when we put it in the paper. We'll announce it at different meetings, and you know, and people can come in. And I think typically it's before Christmas when we end our signups. And basically the sign up is filling in an application and an appendix, and we'll go through both of those with the producer. And then if you're not registered with the Farm Service Agency, because they're the ones that do the paperwork to see if you qualify as an individual. So we'll send you the Farm Service Agency, and you have to do the forms for adjusted gross income for highly erodible lands, because every property that's farmed in New Mexico is considered highly erodible. So you have to go through a form and a process for this. And then the 902, which is Farm Operating Plan, which identifies what you have. They give you a farm number, a tract number. If it's two individuals on the unit, a husband, a wife, two partners, whatever it might be, and you want to break it down into 50-50, 100% for one, 0 for the other, 20-80, however, but this is what they put together, and that's how you'll be identified under the Farm Service Agency records. And then also, if you have an allotment or lease agreements, whatever it might be, we may send you to the Eastern Agency. You may go to the Navajo Nation on tribal ranches to get your agreements, all the information to us. If you need a conservation plan, we'll send you to the Eastern Agency to get that done. And then, of course, they go through the land board approval process and so on. And then we'll identify what kind of approvals and permits and you'll need. And then it's up to that individual to go get them from the respective agency or wherever they need to get it from. After all the sign up goes through and we get all the information that's needed that made you eligible, then we'll process your application, goes through a ranking period, and that's when my staff from every office goes out and works with that individual to check the resource concerns. What's the issues out there? Where are we trying to put in whatever practice? What are we conserving? What are we trying to take care of? Is it erosion control? We need more feed out there. What is it? So anyways, that's all addressed during the ranking period. And then based on that, we develop a conservation plan and contract from all the stuff that BIA and the Navajo Nation will provide and the producer provides us. And once all that happens, you go on the list, our funds come in, the highest rank get obligated first, and we'll go down the line until we run out of money. And sometimes the state becomes fortunate enough where they can get more money from the national office. So we may fund a few more after that. Or there may be some of the other offices and counties that say, nah, we have extra money left over. So that money comes back into the pool and we may get in a little bit more money to fund another 1 or 2 or 3 more applications. So that's kind of the way all that works. And then once we get a contract, everything gets signed, then you're obligated to do whatever's on your contract. Projects, they have to get the necessary ARC clearances and environmental issues need to be addressed before we can proceed. Once the SHPOs and the THPOs and everybody else agrees with the clearances and what needs to be done, then the producer gets to install projects and they start functioning. And the next step is operation and maintenance. And all our practices have lifespan. Some are 5 years, some are 1 year, some are 10 years, some are 20 years. So those practices have to be maintained for the lifespan of that practice. So that's basically our programs. Now I'm going to show you some of just pictures of some of the things that we've done in the past with different individuals. The first one here is outreach. Before this pandemic hit us, all this COVID stuff, we did lots of outreach up in Crown Point. And we did some soil health stuff here about a month ago. But we used to have 4 or 5 different programs. We used to go to the cattle conference, the horse conference, the sheep conference, and do presentations there on range, on crop, on different things, our programs, whatever it might be. But here's just one example of what one of our outreach sessions that we attended out at NTU. Oops, sorry about that. We hit up livestock groups. We'll get 2 or 3 groups together. We'll go out there sometimes we get invited to the casino for the tribal ranchers meeting, and we'll go and present our outreach and our programs there. We have ditch groups, especially up in the Aztec area, that put together meetings, and so we go out there and inform them. The land board sometime want us to go there and do presentations, the chapters. sometimes the tribal governments here at Acoma, especially, they get all their members together, their not the members, the administration together. So we'll put on a presentation for the administration. We do fairs at the schools. We'll present stuff. Like the Pruitt, what is it, Bi-County Fair. We put out information out there on our programs. Sometimes we have individuals that have meetings. We did one here in Rama here a while back where people that were interested in some of the hoop houses and stuff that we do there, they wanted to have a meeting to discuss what their little farms and ranches could get money for. Most of this were all beginning farmers. So they had a meeting there in Rama at the fire station. So we went down there. Excuse me, it wasn't Rama, it was Morrow. So we had a meeting there at the fire station. We provided information for the beginning farmer rancher and the programs that we have and what they needed to do to qualify and go see FSA and all that. And all said and done, we probably ended up with 2 contracts or 3 contracts out of that meeting. You know, they applied and got into it. Soil and water conservation districts, they have their annual meetings. They have, they're the ones that actually convene the local work group meetings. They have different meetings, so we'll go attend their meetings and, you know, provide information on programs. And then sometimes we get invited to federal and state agency meetings. We just had one at the Forest Service here about 2 weeks ago where they had some of their allottees there that work with them, wanting to know what programs are out there for us spending money on federal lands. So we went and talked to a couple of permittees there who are probably going to end up getting in the programs and some that were already in the programs. So that's some of the outreach that we get done. Here's an example of a hoop house. NAPI did, I believe, like 15 or so of them out there. And at the time that they were constructed, I think some of these were done 2 and 3 years ago. We did them over a 2-year period. And they were growing organic stuff, I think, for Costco. But we also do, you know, hoop houses throughout the team there for lots of different people. NAPI, we've done a whole bunch of center pivot sprinklers out there with them. And then down in the valley in Aztec and Bloomfield and Farmington, we've done some of the smaller side rows. We've done some of this in Rama. We did one in Grants, one of those center pivots. So that's another practice there that gets a lot of money, and we've done quite a few. And we always throw this in for kind of a little break there for fun. What did we do before we had Farm Bill programs? You know, there's an old bathtub there, and it's kind of a neat setup if you think about it. It's right on the fence where it waters 2 sides of the fence. There's a pipeline that comes in from the back. There's a float valve, and then there's this what do you call this? So that the cattle can't step on the float, a protection deal there made out of rebar. So that's kind of an old style trough, but it worked, you know. We don't cost on that, but we do on these other ones. Here's an example of tire drinkers that we've installed. You know, it's big, just about anywhere anymore. If you can find tires, sometimes they become hard to find. But you'll see how they put a concrete plug in them, and there's a float valve right here. Here's your escape ramp, and here's another escape ramp for the critters that are they get in there to get a drink so they won't drown. And this was kind of unique here, the one that says Milan. So your well's back here. They used a tire as a float box. So the float is underneath this cover. And then you see the trough over here that regulates the water in the float regulates the water in the trough here. So that's kind of a neat one. There's another one there. And typically what we do is we have the ranchers put in a sand and gravel base or a concrete pad. And typically they use railroad ties to keep all that stuff from coming, you know, getting away from the trough or even create holes with the livestock, you know, and especially when it gets wet. But all these rubber tire drinkers here, we do lots of them, mostly 8-footers. Sometimes they're 10s and sometimes 12s. But the majority are probably 8-footers. There you're looking at something that has 2 feet of depth for the water. And typically they hold anywhere from 690 gallons on the smaller ones to 1,080 or so on the bigger ones, gallons of storage. There's one of your wildlife escape ramps. They're built in and tied to the tire itself, to the bottom. And then they're angled to where when the bird starts swimming around, they'll catch on to the expanded metal and they're able to pull out. Here's a water develop a complete system, solar panels, the storage, and the well is right there. So that's a complete unit. And then from here, you know well that there's a pipeline that goes on off to somewhere. There's a trough back in here. But yeah, those are some of the complete units that the producers have installed through some of our programs. Livestock water storages. This is a typical example of a plastic one. We do metal storages. We do steel rim storages. We do some are standing up, some are laying on skids on the ground. I don't know. What else, Autumn? Did I forget any other kind of storages you can think of? But we cost share on them as long as they meet a certain density, a certain thickness on the metal. You know, we can get them into our programs. Livestock water pipelines, we do lots and miles of them. Sometimes we have issues where there may be some, we may have some sites along the way, so we avoid every site that's out there. Sometimes there may be scattered pieces of pottery or whatever it might be. So instead of doing any kind of ground disturbance, we just put it above ground. And typically when we have this kind of situation, we'll bring the archaeologist and, you know, they're right there in case anything comes up and in case we have to go around a certain area, it gets done. So, you know, we'll have people from the tribe. This one here is at Acoma, and we have people from Thipo, from their Thipo there. We have our archaeologist, somebody from our office, and then the people you see there are the groups on the livestock members, you know, that are unrolling the pipe. And of course, something like this, it's above ground, so the pipe has to be a certain type of pipe. It has to be 200 psi polyethylene. So it just can't be the stuff that you stick in the ground. It's got to be a little heavier duty in case it gets run over or some of the critters try to bite to it to get the water. And the stuff moves around too. You know, it contracts and expands with the sun and the heat. So anyways, we try and use a denser pipe so it doesn't fall apart and come apart. Here's another example of another setup there. This one has, again, the well, the solar panels. There's a solar pump there, and then the storage. And I think the trough is way back there past the truck. So see that there. Cross fencing, different kinds of fencing. You know, some of the different terrain, and usually like this one's had to have our clearances because they clear the path for the fence itself. And for fencing, typically our fences are barbed wire or smooth wire type fencing. We do have some individuals that install net wire fencing. Wildlife friendly fencing is a big thing that's being installed now. Basically, this one has smooth wire on top or smooth wire on bottom or both. And it can be over, I think it's like 40 inches in height, some 38 and some 40. And that way the critters, the deer, the elk don't get stuck on, you know, in their feet in the top two wires. And then the wires have to be spaced at a certain distance between them. Some people use T-posts, some will use wooden posts for the line fence itself. Some people use pipe braces. You see one there. They make them all differently. Some use railroad ties, some juniper braces. Someone will do the angle iron braces like the highway department uses. Here's an example of brush management, chainsaw removal. This is a before picture. This is after they cleaned it up. All the stuff gets lopped down to within so many inches of the ground. And then it deteriorates. The bugs take over, take care of it for us. And Sometimes they end up throwing some seed in there, helping the vegetation out a little bit. Here's an example of your wildlife troughs. This one, both of these ones have offsite. One of them, they're like roofs that are out there. Basically, what they do is there's a storage in the back that you can't see, but they collect it with a propanel or a tin roof. It goes into your storage. The storage sits a little higher than these things here, and they feed the rainwater feeds these little troughs. Then they have the ramps, and they have water for the bear, the deer, the elk, the birds, the squirrels, whatever it might be. So this is typical of wildlife troughs that we've done. Here's another one that's chipping. This group here, they didn't want to go in there and lop it, so they brought in a chipper, and all the stuff that was cut from the trees after it was thinned, they put it through a chipper, and it looks pretty clean, you know. Here's another one. This one here is a big sage treatment on that one. And this one here, I think it was a brush hog that they used on this one. So what they did is they cut it down to the ground level. So when you're using a brush hog, especially like on big sage, what ends up happening is you're cutting it down to the ground level with those brush cutters, and it's taking it's cutting the bush down to below the growing points. So the object of this whole thing is that you cut it below the growing points, so you're actually kind of killing the plant because it's not going to be able to grow. Then if you have cover crops and range seeding. Basically, this cover crops they're put in kind of a twofold for erosion control, and a cover crop basically you put in something that's an annual, and then along with the annual you put in your range type grasses. So the cover crop will kind of create a microenvironment, and then your range grasses will come in through there, and you have the moisture and you have the organic matter and all that stuff. Or you can do it the old-fashioned way, get a little range drill, and then just drill the seed in. You know, most years in this country, range seedings aren't real good. This year it would have been perfect. We got lots of rains. We're still getting them, and they've been coming in early. Again, a complete water system out at Crump Point. Here's a land leveling we did with cover crops in there. I believe this is oats that was planted in there as a nurse crop, and then alfalfa was in there also. It's coming in. Forest stand improvement. This is thinning. A lot of these dog hair thicket stands. You can see a lot of the stuff that was cut in there. They go in there, cut them out, they leave a certain density. The stuff that's in there is lopped, so it doesn't exceed a certain height, because you don't want that stuff to burn and then catch all your trees on fire. And then we also leave sometimes piles for wildlife, for some of the little mice and rats and stuff, for the owls and the hawks to eat. You know, their food source. Salt cedar removal. This stuff here it was pulled with a excavator, and then they came back in with masticator, and then they just chopped all that stuff down to nothing. So you can see how some of these areas end up being after they do the full treatment. Cross fences in Zuni. Here's one of those angle iron type corner braces that have been installed. Some of our fences. So that kind of gives you an idea of some of the practices that we deal with. So, if you have any questions or anything, we can talk about stuff. And then here is the contact information for the different offices. So I'll leave that on for a little bit so that anybody that's interested can, write that down. Any questions, any comments, anything?
Okay, thank you, Richard. That was a very good presentation. We do have one question, and
Yes.
it is, do you have a list of people whom sell tire troughs?
Okay, in our country here, a lot of the troughs come in from the mine, and they're those big U-Haul tires that come off the mine. So most of the time, those are hard to get unless you have connections. But in Albuquerque, if you Google something called the tire welder, it's on Pan American Freeway. They sell those big tires, and they have them in different sizes. They have them all cut. You know, if they're like 12 footers, they'll cut them in half down the center of the tire. If they're 8 footers, they cut the top off where you have the threads, but then you have the upper portions taken out. And those tires are they have special machines that that they use to cut the rubber. So not everybody can do it. A lot of people say, I'll just use a chainsaw, but it doesn't work that way.
Right, okay. Thank you, Richard. And then thank you for that question. And then we have a comment from Dr. Patrick. Thank you, Richard, for a comprehensive presentation, providing some very useful information regarding available NRCS resources and how to contact field staff. And I agree. Thank you. If you guys have any other questions, go ahead and raise your ask them. If not, Richard's information is on there, and then we will also post it on our website, and the recording will be posted on our YouTube channel. So, with that, thank you again. I'm going to go through my screen and go over a few last minute things for our group here.
Okay.
Thank you. So next week we will have rural development provide a presentation on their programs and services, and that's on August 4th from 5:30 to 6:30. If you registered, just go back to that email and follow the links there. If not, you can go to our website under the upcoming events tabs, and you'll see the registration link there, and also other upcoming events.
Right. Okay.
So that, thank you again. Visit our website. If you guys have any questions, you can email it to project email. If not, you can email myself or Kelly, and and also take a look at our newsletters on there as well. It has information on here. So with that, thank you again, Richard, and thank you everyone for joining us. I know we went a little off our time, but the information provided was very important for you all to know. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to go ahead and end the polls and end the session. Everyone have a great evening. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project, or NSA project, is a New Mexico Cooperative Extension Service initiative delivered in collaboration with the Net College Land Grant Office and the Community Outreach and Patient Empowerment Program, also known as COPE. This project is funded by USDA's Outreach and Assistance for Socially Disadvantaged Farmers and Ranchers and Veteran Farmers and Ranchers program. The NSA project field staff consists of myself and Kelly Lantana, who is our field specialist, and then also our program director, Dr. Michael Patrick. 3 major goals listed as you see on the screen. Our first goal is to improve the operations, profitability, and sustainability of socially disadvantaged Navajo farmers and ranchers and veteran farmers and ranchers. Secondly, we want to increase our Navajo farmers and ranchers' knowledge and use of USDA programs and services provided from NRCS, FSA, Rural Development, and Risk Management Agency programs, and of other resource providers. Lastly, we want to increase the local production and consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables and healthy food by Navajo families and individuals. To accomplish these goals, the NSA project is committed to providing our producers with workshops, webinars, conference, monthly newsletters, annual resource fairs as today, field day demonstration, individual technical assistance with production, management, marketing, and financing issues, completing BIA and natural resource conservation plans.